if like you know where you want to go, you have a why and a purpose behind it, the how will show up. It will show up. But but you need to know where you're going. You need a North Star. And for me, my North Star was freedom.
Hey everyone, I'm Burton and welcome to PropStream Pros, the podcast where we dive into the lives of real estate professionals who've made it. In each episode, we'll explore how they got started, challenges they faced, and the strategies that helped them succeed, so that you can learn from their journey and apply those insights to your own path. Whether you're just getting started or already building a portfolio, there's something here for everyone. So make sure to subscribe, follow, and join us as we talk to professionals who've made their own success.
On this episode of PropStream Pros, Burton sits down with Rob Chevez, who walked away from a high six-figure career just before the biggest real estate crash in history and built a life of freedom anyway.
Hey everyone, Burton here with another episode of PropStream Pros. And today I have a really special guest with me, a gentleman that not only runs his own company, but has had several experiences that we're hopefully going to try to extract and share with you. Maybe it connects the dots with what you're going through, inspires you to maybe make that next step into real estate. So please help me give a warm welcome to our special guest, Mr. Rob Chevez. Rob, what's going on? How are you doing today?
What's up, brother? I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, absolutely. First and foremost, thank you for investing your time with us here at PropStream. We know how busy you are as a business owner and obviously trying to go out there and help homeowners that need help. So we really appreciate you spending this time with us today. But let's get straight to it. How long have you been in real estate? Feel free to round up if you'd like.
Sure. I mean, so I started buying in 1999, and then I didn't go into real estate full time until 2005. So 2005 to now is what I've, real estate full time.
Awesome. So when you say you got involved with real estate in 1999, was that like just happenstance because you bought a property for your family at that time?
I house hacked my first house, right? I had started a recruiting business with my best friend pretty much right out of college. And he was living in a particular neighborhood. And I've always had an owner mindset. I was like, okay, well, he's living in this neighborhood. I should go live close to him and we could run the business out of our houses, out of his house. But I want to live close by because my commute had been like 30 or 40 minutes to get to his property. So found a property, bought it. And, your mentality or my mentality right out of college was I was cool living with roommates, right? Like that's what I'd always done. And so I had a couple of friends say that they wanted to move in. And the next thing I knew, they were paying the majority of my mortgage. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like, I like it.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Really interesting that you considered house hacking. I'm sure there's tons of college students that are listening today wondering, when my lease is about to go up, what can I do next? This is a great strategy that you just shared with us. How did you come across that first property? Was it something that was off market? Did you find it through a realtor or a real estate agent?
I mean, again, my friend we were running the business out of a townhouse in his neighborhood. And I saw a sign come on the market and I was like, oh, let's go see what that's worth. And I went to go look at it and, the price was good. That like this wasn't like I wasn't getting like a home run deal. I wasn't an investor mentality at the time. I literally was just, can I buy this? What's the mortgage? Can I afford it? And if I brought roommates in, could they help me defer that payment? And like that was that was it, right? It wasn't more complicated than that.
I love that. So it wasn't really like you said, and I can see now why you start with 2005 being the starting date versus 1999, because it seems like in 1999 you were just doing it just to get by as a college student. Hey, you know what? I need a place to stay. Obviously, economy at that time might have been, what it was, and so rather than trying to figure out the hard way, I love this. You had this entrepreneur mindset where it's like, hold up here. Here's a little spot that's really close. If we get it, add some roommates to it, my cost could be dramatically lower than if I were to go get something solo. Yeah. Is that correct?
100%. That was it.
I love that. You're in like in a state of survival. I have to be crazy strategy.
Yeah, I have to be clear. I was recently graduated from college, so I wasn't in college when it happened.
Okay. So this is right after.
I just, you're used to having college roommates, and we would all pay for, like, we'd get a lease and then we each would pay, a room fee essentially. It's like you pay 500, he pays 500, I'll pay 500, we can cover the lease, right? So I was like, well, why not do that with a mortgage, right? So it just seemed better to think that way, right? I'd rather own it than rent it. So that's what I did once I graduated from college.
Thanks for the clarity on that. And that's still, I believe, a good strategy, because with student loans the way they are today, I mean, a great way to, stay on top of your student loans is doing what you did, right? So that's an awesome story to share first and foremost. And congratulations on graduating. 2005. Let's now jump forward. Sure. Why do you consider that the start of your real estate journey?
Well, it's essentially that same recruiting business that I helped my friend start provided me a lot of capital. So I'd been buying real estate like one house a year essentially for like 5 to 6 years. And by 2005, I just was in love with real estate. Like I couldn't stop thinking about it. I obsessed about it. I thought about it like early in the morning when I woke up. I thought about it late at night when I went to bed. I read lots of books around it. I realized that as a recruiter, as a headhunter, which is what I was, every month we started at zero. And I just kept asking myself the question, like, it'd be really cool if I did something one time and got paid forever. And I was like, well, like if I when I buy real estate and it's rental real estate, I can initiate that action one time and get paid forever. So I was like, why not just do that all the time? So that was the simple thought process, right? It wasn't more complicated than that. And so I turned to my business partner in '05, the summer of '05, and I said, man, I love you. I like this business, but I'm not in love with this business. I believe that my journey is really on the side of real estate. And so I need you to buy me out, right? And we worked out, something that was fair for both of us. He bought me out of that business, and I decided to be a full-time real estate investor without a plan, a mentor, a model. This is before like YouTube is exploding, and there's really the only way you're getting information is from like your local real estate investment association, and everybody's trying to sell you books and tapes in the back of the room, and there's so many different models. And so anyhow, like I just had a belief that we were going to do this. Now, I want to give you a perspective. I was making a high 6-figure income. Okay. We'd recently bought a very large, what we would consider a large purchase in an affluent neighborhood in the DMV area. This is a summer.
When you say, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but when you say we, are you talking about you and your business partner, or is this you
me,
and
my
your
wife?
family?
Yeah, my wife.
You and your wife.
So,
okay.
Yeah. And our baby girl was 3 years old, right? And again, perspective. This is the summer of '05. Things are super hot, like really, really hot. And I told my wife, we're probably more than likely taking the step into like on the precipice of some kind of recession. Okay. Like it feels like irrational exuberance going on right now, which I had experienced during my .com days. Because remember, like I was a tech sales recruiter, so I experienced a boom and I experienced a bust. So it felt the same. So I said, if we jump in now, more than likely when the market comes back, we'll be in a really good position. But I don't know how bad it's going to get, but we'll figure it out. Right. And so we did. We figured it out. We didn't get slaughtered during the crisis. In fact, we bought a lot of properties during the crisis. We went to a submarket a couple hours away from where we lived, which protected us and insulated us from like the high appreciating markets and what had happened in those markets. I was buying into like cash flow, low income communities.
And we're referring to what had happened in '08 and '09. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I have a few questions.
Sure.
You gave us a lot of gems, and so I have a few questions. The first question I have, and feel free to list a few if you'd like. You did mention that you experienced, especially in the early stages of the 2000s, trying to learn real estate, try to go to a lot of events. You got people trying to pitch you a bunch of stuff that you probably don't need. You mentioned a bunch of books and programs and whatnot. But you yourself also delved into reading books. What books would you recommend our audience to consider reading if they ever wanted to learn more about real estate?
Um, Everything you ever want to need, or everything you need to know about cash flow, was a great book that I read. Right, it really broke down the numbers. I mean, any book. Here's the reality. Every book has gems in it. So if you're in love with this game, then you should just be consuming as much as possible, because you need to get context of the world, right? There's real estate investing is such a big word, so you need to learn, like, what is notes, and what's a sub two, and what's a lease option, what's a sandwich lease option, what's a wrap, and like what's wholesaling, and how do you flip. Like, you need to get context of the world that we're in, and then you have to start picking lanes. Like, well, based on my skills, my background, my network, like, where do I see myself fitting? What lane can I accelerate this business in? And so there isn't any one particular book, right? I'm going to say, just,
that.
yeah, just go and listen to as many
Just
podcasts.
get like you said, get obsessive, get if
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, get addicted to real estate.
Dude,
I
I was
love that.
obsessed. Yeah. And still, I'm still obsessed, right? So
You're probably talking lease options and negotiation in the middle of the sleep.
yeah.
Your wife is probably like, "Come on, Rob, we got to stop now."
Oh, 100%. That definitely happened.
That's funny. Okay, second question I have, and this is actually during the time of your transition from what we were doing previously, your headhunting business, to the real estate. You mentioned, and this was something I was going to ask. You mentioned the salary, the acquisition of the big property, the affluent in the affluent neighborhood, your property with your wife and your daughter. What was the feeling at that moment of just even having that thought process? Because I'm sure there are tons of people right now that are listening that are probably in what I would call limbo, where they're probably doing great right now with their corporation, their steady check, but there's this feeling of, I know I can do more. And it sounds like you went through that.
Oh yeah, sure.
What did you feel at first? Like, did you think it was just a silly...
I felt like I was dying doing what I was doing.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like,
why is that? Why did you feel like you were dying doing what you were doing?
Because it wasn't purely mine. It wasn't my dream. Does that make sense? Like, my partner started it and I joined him like a month later, and we were building this thing. But it was really his dream, right? And I was like, I want to build my dream. And by the way, I didn't have a clear idea of what it was. It was just like, it's not this, right? Like, there was something in me that wanted to stack assets, that wanted to buy properties. I don't know where that came from, right? I just knew that I wanted to have a portfolio of assets. That kind of was like the dream for me. And I knew that I wasn't meant to be doing what I was doing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take a leap into the unknown, and I will figure it out. I need to burn the boats. I need to just burn them. I'm not going to go back to that world, right? Which I think is really important, because a lot of people, like there's a lot of doubt, right? You have to kill the doubt. I call it killing the dragon of doubt at that stage, right? They're like
that, killing the dragon of doubt. I
killing
love
the
that.
dragon of doubt. And the way you
got to slay it eventually.
You got to slay it, right? You got to slay the dragon of doubt. And it's, since then I've built a whole model of thinking around this and how to do it. But I remember going through that and experiencing and say, I don't want to go back to that life. So I will do everything I possibly can to build my new life and my new identity. And it's going to be hard and it's going to be painful. And that's how it's supposed to be. Like, don't retract back, because your future isn't there. Your future is somewhere out here, right? So I killed the dragon of doubt. And there's a formula that I use to like priming your brain, reading, listening to positive things.
Do you mind sharing a little bit of that formula?
Well, I mean, that's kind of it, right? Like, you need to put good things into your brain, because from an emotional standpoint, like, if you're consuming negative things, like you emotionally will take in negativity, like it won't feel good, right? But if you put in positive thoughts and positive things into your brain, is the best way I'm going to put it, right? Positive things come out, like vision comes out. And so every morning I would listen to Jim Rohn or Tony Robbins. And those, during my era, those were the guys, right? Like you're listening to right. And I remember listening and growing, right? And I definitely realized like at this stage, at every stage, you need a growth mindset. You need a can do versus can't do mindset. You know, you need an optimistic, like, this is going to freaking work, I'm going to make it work mindset, right?
Yes.
You cannot let that doubt creep in your mind and let it like be the loud voice. It's okay if it comes up. Like I remember like having negative voices and then I would just shoot it. I'd be like, nope, no. Like I'm going to keep my eye and my mind on the prize, the bigger why, right? If you build a big why, the how just shows up. Right. And for me, the big why was.
Ooh,
Right?
can you repeat that? That's a very strong statement. Please repeat that
Yeah.
statement you just said.
If you have a big enough why, okay, if like you know where you want to go, you have a why and a purpose behind it, the how will show up. It will show up. But but you need to know where you're going. You need a North Star. And for me, my North Star was freedom. I wanted freedom of choice. I wanted optionality. I didn't want to be a slave to a wage. I didn't want to be a slave to a job I didn't like. I wanted some level of choice and freedom. And the way I saw it was through real estate. Like that was the vision I had. I was like, what's created the most millionaires of any industry? I understand the pattern. I could buy a house. I can get the house rented, and I could rinse and repeat. It's not a complicated idea, right? So I was like, well, I'm just going to do this.
I love that.
Yeah, it's simple.
So that's and thank you for answering those two questions
Yeah.
regarding the book, regarding the emotions, the moment that you made that transition. My third question is, I mean, obviously hindsight 2020, but you didn't know at the time. You made this transition in 2005, and knowing what we know now, everyone would probably have been like, whoa, would probably have not done that at that time, right? Because again, just literally 3-4 years later, one of the biggest recessions occurred in the United States. But you said something that was really interesting. You said, hey, no, I was seeing signs at that time. And then not only were you seeing signs, you also said something that was really interesting that one of our other guests said in a previous episode, was that you went into an area that wasn't as impacted as other areas. And I think this is very important to know, because I don't think real estate is a one shoe fits all scenario, right? What happens in one market doesn't necessarily happens in another market. So let's talk about that for a second. So 2005, you start acquiring assets, you're renting them out, you're doing other strategies. It sounds like you do quite a bit, from BRRRR to fix and flipping to renting to wholesaling novations,
Agency.
lease options, wrapping. I mean, yeah, the list goes on. I'm really thinking here, Rob, you're like the Swiss Army knife of real estate right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll explain at the end what our business looks like today, just to give it perspective.
Thank you. I was just going to say, what services, yes, do your company provide? And actually, let's talk about it now. So you're obviously you run your business. So what services do you guys provide at your firm?
So today we own a holding company that owns sales teams, that own acquisition business, that owns a property management business, that owns a hard money business, that owns a title business, that owns a construction business, like market ready remodeling. And so we learned through the years how to run these small vertically integrated businesses. It really, though, started from this pain that I had we'll go back in time and I'll tell you how all that got organized. So to kind of double click on something you said, in the summer of 2005, I turned to my wife and I said, hey, I want to do this full time, but the issue is this feels very much like the dot-com boom. It feels like everybody's just like crazy. I can't make the numbers pencil out any longer in our local market, right? Before, I could buy a townhouse and I could between the mortgage and the tenant putting in, I can make the numbers work. The price to rent ratio is way off. I was like, this isn't working here. So we need to go into another market where the numbers do make sense. So I started doing research and I started finding some markets that had never really experienced the same level of appreciation, but there were more cash flow markets. Now, there's a lot of negatives from those markets, a lot of lessons learned in those markets too, right? But what it did was that market became my MBA, my training ground. I learned how to send out letters, work with distressed sellers, figure out how to negotiate deals at the table, raise capital, do all the stuff, right? In a market that was drastically reduced in like the median price point of a home, right? Like in our market at the time, the median price point might be like $400,000. And in this particular market, it might be like $80,000, right? So it was,
oh wow, that is a huge dramatic difference. Yeah,
like drastically different. There's pros and there's cons to those markets, right? That's what I learned. But what it did was it protected us because I wasn't buying into this appreciating market where the numbers didn't make sense, and then literally the rug got pulled out from under so many people, right? Here, that market actually kind of trailed the more affluent market. So we saw increases in asset values in this market because they were just like behind the times. So people were looking for yield and they were like, well, I can't make money here in the Northern Virginia area. So they started getting pushed out. And because we were buying those assets early in that idea, right? We saw a bump in appreciation. So we got lucky.
So cool. You got there before the stampede got there, essentially.
We got there before the stampede. So I was buying these duplexes and triplexes and selling them and fourplexes and bigger units and fixing them up and then selling them to investors turnkey. And here's where it started, like the wheels started falling off the bus a little bit. Okay. So we were buying like 30 houses a year. We're fixing them up. We're selling them. I got my license purely to do like referral fees. And then we were managing assets. So within a couple years, we had 300 assets under management. And,
wow.
And so we were doing it, just me and my wife. And we were,
that's a lot.
It was a lot, right? And actually it was my wife managing those assets and she built a team, right? And again, it's 2.5 hours away from where we live and we have a little baby girl, right? So it's like, we're both these entrepreneurs building these businesses and it's not close, right? Our life is 2.5 hours away. So there was a lot of like, okay, you go out for 2 days, I go out for 2 days type of thing, right? So, but here's what was happening. We were doing 3 things. We were fixing and flipping houses. I was playing agent now some, and we were managing these assets. And we were doing okay, but we weren't doing any of them particularly well because we were spread so thin. It
really?
wasn't,
okay.
Yeah. This goes back to the whole idea of if you could do one thing and do it really, really well, like all the money you ever will make can come out of just doing one thing well. So in around 08, 09, my brain started shifting a little bit about like, well, what is my one thing? Okay. And based on what I had learned up until that point, I was like, well, I have this really big affluent network in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area because I was a recruiter before that placed, higher net worth people into tech jobs. I had this ability to understand asset values because of me being an investor, and I was now buying properties in our market at 50 cents on the dollar. So I was playing that game and understanding how that game was working. I realized that those cash flow markets, while they look great on paper, in real world, they just weren't panning out the way that I thought they would pan out, right, from a cash flow perspective. So I was being pulled back now. My heart was getting pulled back into our metro market. And I had realized that the brokerage business, like selling properties, like especially because I was now representing builders and developers of luxury homes, that it was no different than wholesaling. I was controlling real estate with a piece of paper. One's just called a listing agreement. The other one's called a purchase agreement. And, but I was now working with a much sexier asset, a much smarter clientele, because these were builders, developers, and luxury markets. And I was like, I like this. I want to do more of this. And so I stopped flipping a lot of properties in that market because there was a lot of trailing liability there. And I started stamping what I call my cash machine. And this is one of the fundamental things I started really understanding about this game that we all play, is that I started making the majority of all my cash, right? And you think of a cash conversion cycle out of the agent business. So I started realizing I was becoming an agent that really just knew, like, I had the heart of an agent, but the mind of an investor. I knew,
yes, I was about
right?
to say, you're the number guy. Yeah.
I had the mind of an investor. And so I could go in, and remember, this is 08, 9, 10. People were in trouble, right? And I had this unique skill set to help them understand how to value assets, how to get out of the assets, how to market the assets better, right? How to reposition their assets. And so I turned to my wife and I said, our journey was always to buy and hold assets long term. That was always the journey. But when you become a full-time real estate investor, you need to turn property in order to, like, pay bills, right? And I started feeling really bad about turning some of that property. I felt like I was killing the golden goose, right? Like, if I found a good deal, right? If I found a good deal, I would have to sell and liquidate the asset for today money. So I might buy like 4, I would liquidate 1, right? I would try to keep 3. That was like the model. But I felt bad liquidating that one because I'm like,
that one property.
I should keep it. Or I might have had,
especially as time goes on, you're probably looking at the property value increase after you sell it, and you're like, wow, we should have.
Yeah, I was like, I got to liquidate too. I knew I would beat myself up for liquidating assets, right? But I needed the money because, like, you still have. I learned this other concept. You're running 2 businesses at the same time, right? You have a household business. It's got a P&L. That household needs to eat today, right? And you're building, right? So it needs a cash machine to feed it today. And then you need a wealth machine to feed you tomorrow, right? So there was like this concept I started thinking in my head. Every investor needs a cash machine and they need a wealth machine. And I started saying, well, I think I'm going to make my cash machine out of the agent business, and my wealth machine will continue to be this accumulating of assets. Okay. That is always that'll be the wealth machine. Right. And I won't feel guilty selling a retail property for cash because it was never a deal in the first place. Right. I was like, I could just help somebody sell better or buy better because I had this unique skill set, right, that I had learned by investing. And so, so our business shifted. So for the next, if anything, I'll tell you, like, a big regret that I have, Burton, was that my brain from like 2009 to 2018 started, like, really focused more on, like, okay, I'm going to build a big real estate team. Okay. I'm going to build a big real estate team. So I started buying into a little bit of, like, the trophies and the deal, like the agent side of the business, right? Like, be the best in the market and all that stuff. And I didn't buy as much as I had been buying and holding in years past because my brain went 100% to learn how to build a team, right?
Stuff. Yeah.
And then I woke up essentially a decade later, and I was, like, looking at my net worth statement and saying, God, like, all of my net worth is tied into assets that I bought a decade plus ago. And this real estate team that I have is a really great cash machine. It makes me it's a great machine, right? But I took my eye off the ball a little bit, and I didn't buy as much as I should have been buying. So I started buying
to feed the wealth machine, right? So it sounds like the balance kind of went off a little bit, where you were focused, literally, like you said, from 2009 to 2018 on just the cash machine, the now machine, right? So,
that's right. And part of
how did you bring back the balance into the wealth machine at that time?
Yeah. That's a great question. So what happened was, first off, I realized, I'm off track of the original vision of what I had for my life. But something really powerful happened in the process of learning how to build a really good cash machine. I learned that those cash machines can be turned into like a real legit business, like a run, so that it's an asset of itself. It becomes a part of the
What
wealth.
was the first moment that you realized that, or you saw that vision? Like, what was it? You're like, oh, hold on here.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was in a mastermind with Gary Keller, right, the founder of Keller Williams Realty, and there was a couple things that he said, right. He said, guys, do you understand that like the typical Subway franchise, like it costs you $250,000 to buy into that franchise, and it makes on average maybe $60,000 a year in profit. So you got to get the licensing and get the space and the 250,000, like, and you're gonna maybe make $60,000 or $70,000 as the owner of that like Subway franchise. And he's like, that's cool, like that's cool. But why couldn't you do that with your own business? Why couldn't you just open your existing cash machine in another market? And so that seed was planted in my brain that, oh, these are, if you turn them into little wealth machines, right? You turn them into an actual business, that you're now creating asset value through business ownership. And the other thing that he said was, Rob, I've made a lot more money owning businesses than buying real estate. And I was confused by that statement because running a real estate team seems so heavy and like, agents don't always do what they're supposed to do, and they don't show up, and they don't quite like there was just, it's peopling, right? Like I was,
You become a manager. Essentially, you're managing people, not the business anymore, because you have people.
It seemed hard, right? Whereas when I bought a property, the property did its job, right? It provided the shelter. As long as you manage the property well, like it worked for you 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so I was like, real estate asset ownership seemed a lot easier because there was less peopling. Does that make sense? And by the way, the market over time, because time like cures a lot of sins, is like those asset values just went up in value, right? And so the thing is, by 2010, I remember thinking, or 2011, 2012, I remember thinking, dude, all this stuff is so overpriced now, right? Which is so funny, which is why my brain went to continue building the team, because I bought things at such discounts in '08 and '09 that they seemed expensive to me. That was just dumb,
4 years later, when things were starting to come back up. Yeah.
And the values now were like, I bought them at let's say $120, and they were now like at $240. And I'm like, why would I buy a $240 when I bought a $120? But the numbers still work because of interest rates. Like nobody was like slapping me upside the head and saying, hey kid, you could still get a great rental yield on this because of where interest rates are. So anyhow, I digress. I woke up in 2018, 2019 and realized that what I had created was, I had learned how to run these sales teams. Like I had learned, I'd learned how to start converting this cash machine into part of my wealth machine. And then I also was like, dude, you haven't bought as much as you bought in years past. And I was regretful of that. I'm like, I need to align all of these assets together. I need to align the fact that I know how to build a really good sales machine and the love of real estate investing. And I need to start really building like my cash machine business to serve only builders, developers, investors. Because up until that point, we were building hyper-local neighborhood teams.
Right.
And I need to continue buying more assets. So now my brain was back on buying more assets. So we set up an acquisition.
But you were saying at the moment you were doing it, but they were separate. And what you were saying, they were slightly off balance because of just the situations that you win. So it sounds like you're figuring out, okay, rather than separating them, which can cause an unbalance, how do we make them into a vertical, right? It sounds like that's what the mindset is starting to become.
Yeah, what happened was, how do I arrange, like I run this 30,000 person investor group called Grid, right? Like how do I arrange this asset value that I've built this thing called Grid, which was like my pet project, my passion that turned into something big, right? How do I align this with my agent business, with buying lots of assets? And I realized, going back to some of the lessons that I had learned in years past, that Rob cannot do everything himself. What he needs to do is find great leaders to run these businesses. And so and because I learned how to run a business, I'm like, oh, I can show them. I can find a leader. I can show them how to build this business. They will follow your systems and models for building this business, and we will create these vertically integrated businesses to serve the real estate investor. I just happen to have a huge funnel of real estate investors because of Grid, right? So I was like, cool, we can now service all of these investors in my community by building these vertically integrated businesses. And so,
oh, so smart.
does that make sense, right? And so, even though I was regretful that I had not bought as much buy and hold real estate during that time, I was learning a very valuable skill, which is like learning how to people and run and build businesses.
Right. So while it felt like an unbalance, it wasn't necessarily. It was more like you were building up your arsenal to do what you're essentially going to do next, and that's go back into building up your assets. This all always happened for a reason. It's so crazy when you think about it. But go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, and then I started seeing like a vision of this even further, right? You started seeing how Cody Sanchez was building a holding company and buying businesses. I'm like, that's kind of like what we do, except we create them, right? Or Alex Hermosi with acquisition.com. I'm like, that's kind of like what we're doing, but we've been creating them. And so I'm like, okay, well, we will not only continue to build out our brands, but we will more than likely start buying and buying other vertically integrated businesses or rolling up other property management businesses into our main business. So my thinking evolved over time, right? And I'm like, oh, we'll build a holding company that owns all of these assets, which, by the way, that becomes part of my wealth machine, and we will continue to buy rentals, right? So that's where we are today, right? So we'll sell.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that, like that, the process and the journey to get where you're at today. I have tons of questions. First and foremost, and feel free to go where you need to go to kind of answer this. But Rob, you seem very analytical. Where do you get that from? Like you seem to be the type to just be able to look at things, a chaos of numbers or a chaotic situation, and say, hold on here, let's make sense of all of this. Has that always been a trait since you've been around? Like, did you learn that as a kid? Was that something you learned in college?
It's so funny because the way that I would never describe myself as analytical, but it has become, what I have realized is that I am sequential in my thinking. Okay. And they're different. And I'll tell you, I'm creative, and I could see patterns, and I can predict, future outcomes. Okay. But analytical, I never was. And I'll tell you a story behind that. Remember how I told you I had these 300 assets under management, and we were managing these things? Well, one day my wife comes to me and she says, hey, there's normally $100,000 in this bank account, but there's only 5,000, and I don't know where the rest of the money is. Okay. And I was like, okay. And she's like, and by the way, we have payroll in the next 4 days. And she's like, I don't know where the rest of the money is. And by the way, I'm unhappy because all we do is work. And our relationships has just turned into we're just business partners. Right. And I'm thinking, because I'm obsessed about this business and I love this business, I'm thinking everything's fine, right? So in one day, my wife tells me that we have a big problem, and
there's a discrepancy
discrepancy in our bank account, and a discrepancy in our relationship bank account, right? And I realized, okay, Rob's a really good deal maker and he's a really bad business guy, right? Because I was always I'm not great at numbers. I let other people do the numbers, right? I just kind of I would just deflect it to somebody else. I wasn't a great math student growing up. Like it felt like my kryptonite. I was good at everything else, but like math, I was always a solid D student. I never failed, but I was solid D, right? And and so I had this like limiting belief that I just wasn't good with numbers, right? And this was my reality check time. Like, hey man, if you want to get good at business, you're gonna have to get good at this language of business, which is accounting. And by the way, I'd gotten C's and D's in accounting in college, and so I was like, okay, I need to get good at this. So anyhow, I looked at her books, which made no sense to me, but I found that there was I found that there was a billing issue. I somehow, after 8 hours of like looking at this stuff and it being Chinese to me, I realized
it's like when Neo from the Matrix first looks at the Matrix.
Yeah, that's
like,
it.
What
that's
am I
it.
staring at?
After 8 hours, I was literally like, I think what's happened, and somehow you guys, your team missed it. We're paying the contractors, but we haven't collected the funds from the owners. There was all these outstanding invoices, right? And I'm like, I don't know how that fell out. Like, anyhow, that was the problem. So we went and collected all the money that was owed to us, and I solved the problem, right? And then so I had to solve that problem, and then had to solve the problem of like being a good partner to my wife again, right? And we did, right? And so the way I realized that I needed to become a better student of business. So for the next 3 years, I literally put myself at the feet of an accountant and a bookkeeper. And I said, explain this shit to me like I'm a second grader, right? And let's just go through it, right? And every week and every month I would meet with them and they would coach me through P&Ls, financial balance sheets, cash flow statements. And then 10 years later, you're like, dude, I'm good at this stuff. Like I get it.
I love that. It's that obsession again. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
Even though I got into this for real estate, this is part of real estate. Understanding the numbers, the profits and losses,
Yeah.
the ins and outs, right? And again, that's your obsession kicking in. And
Yeah.
hey, you know what? Let me invest in myself to learn this. I love that you did
That's
that.
right. So that kryptonite became a superpower, right?
Yes,
and
sir.
I think that's an important thing for people to hear, right? Just because you're not good at it today just means you just don't have the skill set. You can go get the skill set from somebody, right? Maybe it might come more natural to you, but with effort and hard work, I will be proficient. I will be good at it too, right? And that's having a growth mindset there. And then the second thing is I realized that I was good though at organizing resources sequentially. I was like, oh, you got to do this and you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. I understood how to line up dominoes, people, resources, assets, project man. Like I was good at that, right? And so I kind of combined all those things, and that's where my thinking kind of evolved. But what took me 15, 16 years to figure out took somebody like Alex Hermosi 2 years to figure out. Does that make sense? Like, it's fine. Like
I agree with that. I mean,
yeah.
I think everyone's on their own time frame, and I see it. I agree with you. Sometimes people get there quicker than others, but I don't even think that's a right way of saying it, because although you got there quicker, if we were to take the same time frame between two people, you might have gotten there in a year versus someone getting there in 15 years, but there's still, for the person that got there in a year, there's still 19 years, right? Same with the person who got there 15 years. Again, I don't like that comparison only, and this is a personal thing, only because I do believe everyone has their own time frame, and I see people.
Yeah, you shouldn't be comparing yourself to somebody's outside.
Exactly, that's the word to say, because I see people kind of talk themselves out of things because they're trying to, compare apples to apples when that's not.
Yeah,
true. But I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and I'm like, what? But I love my journey. Does that make sense? Like my journey is my journey, so I love my journey of it. But it's also the reason why I really believe that people should go seek mentors early in their journey. People that have actually really built things, like real people that have built things, because it does compress that time, right? It compresses the time. So what took me 15 years to build, I really think that somebody could build it in 5, right? If they put themselves, in the right path with the right people, you compress time, and that's cool too.
Well,
my path's
that's
my path.
a great That's a great thing that you brought up, and actually leads to my second question. So, fast forward today, you're running a huge operation, tons of people in your community, tons of people in your operation. You mentioned earlier that you understood you couldn't do it all yourself. So you decided, I'm going to go find some great leaders. So let's talk about that. One, what are some traits that you look out for to qualify what a great leader is?
Yeah, and I learned this over time, right? Just look for winners, people that have already won in their life. I'm going to answer this two ways. I really believe that anybody can accomplish anything they want in their life if they want it bad enough and their why is bad enough and they're willing to pay the price for it. I really believe that. Okay. As a business owner, and by the way, because I believe that early on, I would hire people and I'd be like, come on, dude, you can do it. And my belief of them was bigger than their belief. Does that make sense? And
It does.
so I wasn't very good at picking in the beginning because I saw the human potential. Fast forward to today, what I look for are, again, patterns. If you were a winner in your past, you are more than likely going to be a winner in your future. So my job isn't to be Tony Robbins and try to reframe it, like you do that piece. My job is to find the winners and give them a new vehicle and a new opportunity because they will be a winner in my vehicle, right? So what does that look like, right? What does that look like? I was a D1 college athlete. I wrestled in college, right? I did well in high school. I was competitive. I went to college. I did well in college. I was a team captain. Like I did well. Right? So I was a winner in that environment and I was willing to pay the price, the effort it took to be good at that environment. But I wasn't good in the beginning, right? Like it took me time to become good at that. It took me 8 years, 9 years, 10 years to become good at that. And so I realized that anybody that ever is good at anything, whether it's sports, right, or playing an instrument, or maybe you were in the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts and you became an Eagle Scout, they learned the pattern of learning and accomplishing a goal. And I now look for people that understand the pattern of saying, oh, I want to get good at something. Let me go get good at it. And then did they get good at it or not? Right. And so I look for people like that. I also look for overcomers, people that have like they've had a lot of shit happen to them and they've built themselves back up. And I'm like, okay, I like overcomers, right? Because overcomers have freaking grit. So I look for,
That's a word that not too many people use when they are looking for a new hire. Thank you for bringing that up. And I think that's, again, something that anybody out there scouting for new hires, this is a great piece of advice. You have to sometimes look at the person besides their accolades. So I like that you're kind of framing it where like people are leaving breadcrumbs. You as management, you as the hiring person needs to look at that stuff. So you may not think you're analytical, but I'm almost convinced you are, man.
I would probably today I would say I am. Right.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, because and I put you in this box as well. How do you stop these amazing people from leaving? Because in 2005, if I was your business partner, I'd be like, Rob is one of my amazing employees, but he had this drive that I gotta go. So let's face the reality. I'm sure you have tons of superstars in your company right now. How do you keep them motivated? How do you keep that retention when they can pretty much do what you're saying?
Yeah, this is why our business has grown into a vertically integrated business. I realized that the only way to keep talented people is by creating an opportunity for them and by making my world bigger. And I had to make my world bigger in order to fit talented people in my world, right? So if my business partner, I approached him and I said, hey, man, I want to build a division that focuses on bringing in contract consulting work into our business. And I want the majority or, like a 50-50 ownership in that vertical with you. And I'll run it. You don't need to fund it. I will do everything. Right. And he was like, nah, not really interested in that. Right. So what happened was he he's my best friend today, still to this day. But what he did was he forced me to say, okay, well, then I need to go build my world outside of that. I never wanted that to be the case here in my business. So if I see a very talented person and they start having that feeling, I'm like, cool, what are we going to build together? Right. That is why we have all of these other verticals, right?
That's amazing. I will say that there's this thing I read a while ago that said that people don't leave jobs because of the job; they leave the job because of people. And I love that. And this is, I would say the reason I asked that question, Rob, is that this is a very common thing, especially for those that are just starting to build their business. They hire someone who's a superstar, and that superstar learns everything about the business, and then off they go into the sunset,
Well, that
right? And then
superstar
it's
doesn't
like,
see, they're like, where do I go? Where do I grow?
exactly.
You've got to create an environment for them to grow.
And I know I have a few minutes with you, but I wanted to ask you a very important question. And you have literally shared with us a really awesome journey that you've experienced. But the one thing that we never got to address, and I think it's very important, is that you did mention you're a family man. And in the conversation that we had, we mentioned that there was, a discrepancy that occurred with the relationship bank. As a father, as a husband, what advice would you give to those that are in that position of running a business, running a team, having your dream, but also having a family? What advice would you give to those that are listening on how to juggle that?
Well, one thing, I don't know, this book really helped me. So I'm going to give you a book around this, right? The Five Love Languages, simple little book, right? And what I realized when I read that book was I gave my wife a lot of words of affirmation and physical touch. Like that was my way of giving it. I love you, baby. I'm so proud of you. Right. Like that was my way to express like love. But my wife's love language was quality time. Okay. So as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, right, like quality time, I was always building things in my head, Burton, right? Like I'm always like, I'm a dreamer, right? I'm like I love what we do. So I was always living kind of in the future and not being in the present and like being present. Does that make sense? So I started asking my wife, I was like, when were you most happiest in our marriage? And she would say, when we were planting trees together. And I'm like, when we're planting trees together, like, what are you talking about? Right? Like, as a driven person, right? Like, as a driven entrepreneur, like, if I'm not working towards something, then I feel like like I'm failing, right? So, like, slowing down the plant trees was like hard for me. And I didn't understand that what she really, and she would say, because we were doing it together, right? And I didn't understand that until I read the book, The Five Love Languages. And when I read the book, it hit me and I was like, oh, she's quality time. This is the way she interprets love. So even though I love her and like I love her over the moon, I'm so proud of her, she doesn't feel it because I'm not giving it to her the way she wants to receive it, right? And so that was incredibly helpful for me. So I literally had to slow down in order to speed up in life. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Which,
that's so good. I'm
which,
stealing that.
by the way, is also the problem of the technician. If you've ever read the E Myth, like top producers have a hard time slowing down and training and developing people to build a bigger thing. Well, intuitively, I knew I needed to slow down to build people in order to grow the thing. But intuitively, I didn't know I needed to slow down in my marriage and my relationship to build a bigger, better future for us together. And so I think that many entrepreneurs do have this addictive personality, right? Of like they're
This
builders.
obsession we talked about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that if they're not careful, the superpower that built one thing is the kryptonite that destroys something else. And you have to be so cognizant of it, right? You've got to be so cognizant. And like that was my way of learning to be cognizant of it, and also realizing it's a very common thing among real estate investors and agents and entrepreneurs and founders, which is why you see a lot of turmoil and marriages in that world, right? And I was lucky to be able to like understand and then do the work, right? Both of us doing the work to make it work, right? And so,
Love
you
that.
know, yeah,
Thank you
it's
for
all good.
that. That's really
It's all
good
good.
advice. And again, I think it's very important to hear that, especially at a man at your caliber. People might think, oh, look at him. He's doing well. You face the same struggles just like anybody else. And so this advice, this experience that you gave us is really good. Last two questions, and then I know you got to go. Um, what legacy are you trying to leave behind when it's all said and done and we all take our final breath? What is it that you want to be remembered for?
That he was there for me. He helped me grow, right? Like I think about the teacher that might have influenced you in your life and believed in you and helped you build something bigger. Or maybe it was a parent, or maybe it was a friend that believed in you that helped you build something bigger. Like my legacy is that. My legacy is I want to be the person that creates a belief in you, an opportunity in you that helped you see more of you, right? And gave you a vehicle to build a big life. Um, and so I want to be that. Like I always think I'm just like a light. I want to be a light, and I want to be a light in times where it's dark for people, and just be like, dude, he was there for me. He helped me do this. He said this for me, and I want that for my family. I want that for my friends. Um, yeah, like we leave this world and we won't like any assets I accumulate and all that's like that's all fine, right? But it's like who are the people that I touched throughout my life and the ripples that I left and the legacies that we changed through what we do with Grid and our other businesses. And I'm like that will be my legacy, right? That I created a platform for people to live like a bigger expression of themselves.
Rob, I truly believe you created a platform that's not just inspiring, but changing the lives of hundreds, if not thousands, maybe even millions, when the time, when we see it and in the
Yeah,
grand
yeah,
scheme
yeah.
of
When I
things.
die, like let's just say it. Like when I die.
Yeah, we'll say it. And with that said, this is my last question to you. One of the things I love about doing these podcast recordings is that, especially in the world of internet today, things last forever, right? And this is again why you got to be careful because you can leave a footprint. But I think that footprint can also be both bad and good. So my last question to you is: let's assume your friends and family members are going to be watching this 20 years from now. What is a message you like to give them
I
if
love
they're
you.
watching?
I love you. Simple. I love you. Right. I love my friends. I love my family. Um, like I, I, I believe that like my friends and my family would say that Rob loves them. Right. And so it's not complicated. It's like, can I love you enough? Right. Can I, and by the way, that's actually, a hack for anybody running a business, right? Like if you care for clients, if you love your clients, if you love your people, like they can feel it, right? And so what does that mean? That means are you showing up for them? Are you helping them grow? Are you telling them the hard things that they need to hear, right? Like I love John Maxwell. Like John Maxwell says, "Hi, my name is John, and I'm your friend." I love that, right? And I love that because it's so real. John, like you feel that from John, right? And I'm like, I want to be like John, right? I'm like, hey, my name's Rob and I'm your friend, right? And anything from here on out is because I'm coming from a place of service and a place of love, right? That's what I would want them to know.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that heartfelt message. Um, Rob, thank you. This episode was very informative. Thanks for sharing your journey with us. for those that are listening and tuning in, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way for them to continue to follow your real estate journey and your life journey?
I would say, it not about me. Like, go to Grid, right? Like Grid, I always say I'm like the guide, and everybody in Grid is the hero, right? So go to gridinvestor.com, and you'll see me being a good guide. But I want you to be the hero of your own journey, and Grid is a place where that can occur. So they could just go to gridinvestor.com.
I love that. Grid. Think of Grid for the comic book references out there. Grid is like the Justice League.
That's it.
We have Superman here, right? We got Superman, aka Batman, both mixed in one right here in front of me. And if you guys want to be a part of that superhero league, go check out Grid.
That's it.
Rob, you are amazing. Thank you so much for giving us your hour today. I hope you have a great rest of the week. And again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today's episode. Hopefully you tune into our next. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for tuning in to the PropStream Pros podcast. Subscribe for weekly insights and real strategies to help you close more deals. See you next time.